The music academy was quiet, its polished floors reflecting the dim glow of the last hallway lights. The night had emptied the building of students and teachers, leaving only the hum of silence and the steady rhythm of a broom being pushed across the marble tiles. Mr. Davis, the janitor, moved with slow precision, his tired shoulders carrying years of unspoken stories. He wasn't just cleaning the hall, he was guarding a place that once echoed with the kind of dreams he used to have. As he worked his way toward the grand piano that dominated the center of the stage, his steps slowed. The instrument gleamed under the faint light, its lid left open as though waiting for one last song before the night ended. Mr. Davis paused, setting the broom aside. His calloused fingers, more used to mops and buckets, hovered uncertainly over the keys. For a moment, he hesitated, as though afraid he had no right to touch something so elegant, so far from the world he belonged to. But then, with a soft breath, he pressed a single key. The sound rang out, pure and delicate, filling the emptiness around him. He pressed another, then another, until a melody began to take shape, faltering at first, then flowing with surprising grace. It wasn't perfect, but it carried weight, emotion, and longing. In that quiet hall, for the first time in years, Mr. Davis wasn't just a janitor, he was a man remembering who he once dreamed to be. The melody drifted softly through the hall, carrying with it a warmth that seemed to awaken the silent space. What Mr. Davis didn't know was that he wasn't alone anymore. At the edge of the doorway, Emily, the Academy's star pianist and daughter of a wealthy family, had just entered. She had returned for a forgotten music book, but instead of silence, she found herself caught in the gentle pull of a song unlike anything she had ever heard. Her footsteps froze as her eyes fixed on the janitor hunched over the piano, his worn uniform a sharp contrast to the shining black keys beneath his hands. She had listened to countless performances filled with flawless technique, but this was different. Each note he played seemed to breathe, filled with emotion that stirred something deep inside her chest. Emily leaned against the doorframe, almost afraid to move, afraid to break the fragile magic in the air. She studied his face, lined with age and hardship, yet softened by the music flowing through him. He wasn't reading sheet music, wasn't playing for applause, he was simply sharing a piece of his heart with an empty room. A strange sense of humility washed over her as she realized how little she truly understood about music's soul. In that moment, Emily, the girl everyone admired for her polished performances, felt like the student, silently learning from a man who was never meant to be her teacher. The final notes lingered in the air like whispers that refused to fade, but the moment shattered when Mr. Davis suddenly glanced up and saw Emily standing in the doorway. His eyes widened in panic, and he stumbled to his feet so quickly the bench screeched against the floor. His hands, still trembling from the melody, fumbled for the broom he had abandoned, as though clinging to it would erase what she had just witnessed. "I'm sorry, miss," he stammered, his voice thick with embarrassment. "I shouldn't have touched it. I'll get back to work right away." His face flushed with shame, expecting the scolding or dismissal he had seen others give men like him when they stepped out of place. But Emily didn't move to reprimand him. Instead, she walked closer, her expression unreadable until her words broke the silence. "That was beautiful. Where did you learn to play like that?" He froze, uncertain whether she was mocking him. Slowly, almost reluctantly, he admitted the truth. He told her how, as a boy, he had dreamed of being a musician, how he practiced on broken keyboards and second-hand instruments until tragedy struck, his father's death forcing him to abandon music for work. His voice cracked as he confessed that the piano had always been more than an instrument, it was a memory of the life he never had the chance to live. Emily listened quietly, her eyes softening, and for the first time, Mr. Davis felt his hidden story was truly heard. Emily's silence stretched, not with judgment but with thought, as though she was holding his story carefully in her hands. Mr. Davis lowered his gaze, ready to retreat into the safety of his mop and bucket, but her voice stopped him. "Play again," she said softly, almost like a request rather than a command. He shook his head quickly, his chest tightening. "No, Mississippi. It was foolish of me. People like me, we don't belong on that piano." His words carried the weight of years spent convincing himself he was invisible. But Emily stepped closer, her tone firm now. "You belong more than you think. Music like that isn't taught in lessons, it's lived. You felt every note. That's what people come to hear." He met her eyes, surprised by the sincerity there. No one had ever told him his music mattered. She then did something he never expected. She told him she wanted him to play at her upcoming recital. The suggestion left him stunned, almost frightened. Me? On a stage? They'll laugh. I'm just the janitor. His voice cracked under the disbelief. But Emily didn't flinch. They won't laugh, she insisted. And if they do, let them. Because the truth in your music is stronger than their pride. Her words struck a place in him that had long been silent, like a locked door suddenly opening. For the first time in decades, Mr. Davis allowed himself to imagine it: an audience, a piano, and a chance to be heard. The night of the recital arrived with a hushed anticipation that filled the grand hall. Families, teachers, and dignitaries gathered, their eyes fixed on the stage where Emily was expected to dazzle once again. When she stepped out, however, she didn't sit at the piano. Instead, she turned to the audience and spoke with calm conviction. Tonight, I want to share music that comes from the heart. Please welcome Mr. Davis. A ripple of confusion swept through the crowd as the janitor, dressed in his simple uniform, walked nervously onto the stage. His hands trembled as he sat before the piano, the weight of hundreds of eyes pressing down on him. For a heartbeat, doubt threatened to silence him. But then his fingers touched the keys, and everything else faded. The hall filled with a melody so raw, so deeply human, that time seemed to stand still. It wasn't flawless, but every note carried honesty, loss, love, resilience, and hope woven together. By the time the final chord faded into silence, the audience sat breathless. Then, like a wave breaking, applause erupted. Thunderous and unending. Many rose to their feet, some with tears streaming down their faces. Emily, watching from the side, smiled through misty eyes, knowing she had given the world a gift far greater than her own performance, the chance to hear a hidden soul sing. Mr. Davis bowed, no longer just a janitor, but a musician finally seen. In that moment, a dream once buried had been reborn.